Hi, guys. I want to welcome everybody to the training this week. It is beautiful September 4th, Wednesday, 2019, just so that you get your bearings right on where we are and what date and all that good stuff. So, today, what I thought would be cool to talk about is something that's part of the broker blueprint training, and it has more to do with personality type. And personality type and personality tests have been around for a long time. The interesting thing about personality tests is everybody thinks about what they are. You know, whether it's DISC, they're a high D. Probably heard of the DISC one before. There's an animal one out there. I tend to like to keep it simple. And the one that we use around here is a color test. So you're either a purple, gold, blue, or red. And by the way, you have all those color traits in you. But you have some that are more dominant than others. Same way with DISC. You know, you're all DISC, but one is more dominant than others typically. So the thing that I want you to think about with this, and you're all going to go through this training. This is a training that is in Broker Blueprint. Matter of fact, it's one of the first things, if not the first thing that you guys do with this. And the reason that we do that is that it's one thing to understand the personality of yourself, but it's quite another thing to use that in your business, how you're closing people, how you are getting that listing, how are you marketing yourself. So I'm going to give you a 30,000 foot look today in this training. And then once you guys get into it, you'll get in more detail of that. But more importantly, during this training, I want to talk about how you use that. Because a lot of times we go and have these personality tests done, and then what we'll do is we will go ahead and say, you know, I'm a high D, but we never think about the person that we're sitting in front of. Because sometimes, like in the personality test that we do, the color test, if you're a blue-red, which is what I am, if you're a blue or a red, for instance, a gold or a purple may not understand how you're coming at them. So the idea here is to be a little bit of a chameleon with this and understand who you are, and more importantly, understand who you're in front of. But just as important is to understand how people communicate to you. Have you ever had somebody communicate to you and you're just kind of thrown off a little bit, or you don't really sink in with that person? That's because that person might be a red and you are a gold, and you don't communicate the same way. And what usually is good for a salesperson, especially, which we all are in this business of real estate, we're in sales. So one of the most important things you can do is go in, assess the situation, think about who you're talking to, and ask the question, I wonder if they're a red, blue, purple, gold, and then act accordingly. We'll talk about that really quick. On our color test, a purple is driven by emotion. A gold is driven by organization. A blue is driven by thought and figuring out the puzzle. And a red is driven by action. Now, again, this isn't brand new for everybody. You've probably heard of personality tests before, and these are all very similar. But the first thing I'm doing when I'm sitting with somebody is, if I know they're a red and a red is driven by action, I'm probably going to be using my hands a lot more. I'm probably going to be describing things in color and action items and excitement and things like that. If I know somebody is a gold, for instance, and they're driven by organization, I'm going to make sure that I'm very methodical in the way that I'm explaining stuff and the opportunity with me as their listing agent selling their home or whatever it is that I'm doing. The same thing with purple and blue. I'm going to use that. And there's some tricks that I've learned over the years with this. Number one is not only the communication of who you are and why it's important that you communicate in a certain way, but also how people are communicating to you and how you're taking that in. When you're on a listing appointment or you're in front of a buyer, a possible buyer that they're going to be using you as a representative, we use a training here at Anton in the sales side of things, and that'll be another module you'll get to. Module 6, I believe, is sales. But one of the things that we do in there is we go through a process when you're sitting with somebody that's called spin, and we identify the situation, the problem, what does that imply, and what is their need or solution. And there's no better way to do that than first think about this color personality test. So let me kind of explain what I mean. When I'm talking to them about once I know their situation and why they have to sell the property and what the problem is if they don't, and what does that imply if they don't solve that problem, and what does that imply if they do sell that problem, and then what their need is me as their listing agent, I may ask a question to them 4 different ways depending on who they are. So a red is based on action. So once I talk to them about what does that problem imply by not solving it, and what does that problem imply by solving it, I might say to them, hey, can you see yourself using Anton and picture and imagine, because they're thinking you would also talk like this to a blue. But imagine yourself loading your vehicle up and packing your things in your vehicle and getting into the house of your dreams, and imagine yourself grilling in the backyard with your family and doing that activity that you've always wanted to do in a bigger house that fits you and is just perfect for you for the next 10 years. Can you see yourself doing that? Do you see the difference there? As opposed to a blue, for instance. So if I'm in that process, and I know you guys don't know fully on spin yet, but you will. If I'm in that process and I'm in the 3rd to 4th phase there where I know what their problem is, I know if they don't solve it, what does it imply? I know if they solve it, what does it imply? But now we're down to the need. And I might say something like, because they're blue, they're digital, they're all about thought. And, hey, does that solve that problem for you? If we can take your house and market it to 40 different sites and have a lot of traffic come through to look at that house to buy, do you think that solves that problem? Look at that question. Do you think that solves that problem? Or I might say, what do you think about that? I'm coming to them in questions rather than statements because they love to figure out problems. And I like to push that on themselves as if they are the creator of that solution. You're going to guide them in the conversation to where a blue would say, well, why don't you guys list that for me, since you have this great technology that lists houses not only on the MLS, but it puts them on 40 different websites. And you've got this great marketing system where you are communicating to other agents and this, all these things. Could you guys list that for me? Remember, blue wants to solve the problem. So let's talk about a goal. The goal is about organization. So let me kind of explain. Again, we're using spin, and I understand you don't know fully on spin. Just go with the overall theory here. So when I'm talking to a goal, I might say, I already know the problem, and I know if that problem doesn't get solved, what does that imply? And I know if that problem gets solved, what does that imply? So I'll say to a goal, I'll say, one of the great things about what Anton does when we list your property is we've got this back office software, and it's called Roundtable. And what Roundtable does is it not only organizes all of our documents in the cloud, but it keeps all the parties, the buyer, the buyer's agent, the attorney, if there's an attorney involved, the title company, the inspector, the lender, all these people involved in the deal as it's happening real time. When you put in a sales contract, that purchase and sale agreement has all of these time frames to it. But just imagine an organized system where all of those time frames are organized by calendar, and they have notices and alerts, and everybody knows is in communication on the same platform, and it's all organized in the cloud. You can get to all of your documents anywhere you are because they're that well organized, and we use technology for that. Would you like to have some of that organization in your transaction of selling your house? So let me just call a timeout there. That series right there is very different than a red, or is very different than a blue. I'm dealing with this gold in a way that they like to be communicated to. Now notice, I'm not a gold. Heather's a gold, but I'm not a gold. Organization to me and everything in its place is not kind of my thing, the detail. I'm big picture because I'm a blue, I'm a thinker, I want to solve problems. But I've noticed that when I communicate to people and I'm communicating in sync with them, I have a better chance of getting that deal. Some of you that I've talked to, you know that I do this. I go into this mode. So let's go to the last one. Let's go to a purple. Same thing. We're in the third to fourth segment of the spin scenario. So situation, problem. What does that imply if I solve it? What does that imply if I do not? And then what do they need? What's the solution? So a purple is based on emotion. So feeling, tactile, that type of thing. So what I'm going to say to them is something like this. How would that feel to be able to put your house on the market and we have it priced accordingly and we sell it within under the average days on market, and your problem solved? You're able to move to Florida with your family, and your husband starting a new job there, and you don't have to worry about juggling two houses, and you don't have to even be concerned that there's two mortgages in place, and maybe your son or daughter is going to have to delay their starting a new school. How would that feel to be able to take care of that issue right away? You see that, back to timeout, you see that is totally different than the first three. And so the thing that I want to impress upon you is communication is important. Not only is communication important, but it's how we're actually communicating. Those four things have a very different meaning to four different people. So if you can align the communication with the type of person, you've got a much better chance of building our basic foundation that we look for in sales, and that is rapport. We can have all the leads we want in this business, and we can have all the sit-down time with somebody that wants to sell their home or condo, or a buyer that wants to buy a property. But if we can't close them because we don't have rapport and we're not the same, or they don't feel like we're on the same page, it's not going to do us any good. You're going to close more sales by being in rapport with people, by being in the same. There's a book, and I can't think of it right now, but it talks about we all have this tribal mentality. I'll get the book. I'll email it to all the brokers. But we all have this tribal mentality. And what I found was interesting when I was reading that. Let me just Google that while I'm explaining that to you, so we can nip that in the bud here. But when I was reading that book, when I was reading that book, I realized that tribal mentality has a, geez, John, it's called Tribes by Seth Godin. When I was reading that book, and we all have this tribal mentality, the basic thing is we want to belong. We want to be like. It's in our DNA. It's in our who we are. And so rapport, the reason rapport works so well with sales, and the reason that we focus so much on rapport to get a sale is because of this tribal mentality. We want to feel like the person that we're working with is a part of our tribe, is a part of, we have rapport, we are the same, right? And so even though we could be different, even though we could be not the same, when you're communicating, you're communicating with them, you want to make sure that you are conveying to them that you are the same, even though you're not. And I'm not asking anyone on this call to do anything, unethical and not being themselves and misleading people. But what I am doing is I'm asking you to think about your conversation. As a salesperson, as a real estate agent and broker, we are responsible for helping and providing service to our clients. And the way that you can do that, the way that you can give them the best service, the way that you can help them with their problem is to convey to them that you're the best person to do that because of your skill set, because of your hustle, because of the technology that you use, or whatever that is. But that's how you're going to help them. And if you can communicate in a way that they better understand that, that's going to enable you to get the sale. And you're going to help your clients in at the same time. And that's what we're all about here. We want to make sure that, yes, we're being aggressive with our sales, and we're using tactics and strategies that are effective, but our bottom line is helping people. If you can help that person sell their home, or help that person get into a home, or sell their condo, whatever it is, you're going to be in a lot better shape as a real estate agent, a lot better shape as a broker, and you're going to sell more. Point blank, you're going to sell more. So that's why we use the personality test in module 1 in building your business. That's the module. We use that because if you can start off with communication first, and then go into what you're going to do naturally. If you haven't taken module 6 on sales, where we talk about spin and that, don't worry about it. We'll get there. We're also going to do more individual trainings on that from a sales standpoint. But if you haven't got there, don't worry about it. If you have got there and you're implementing this, you're practicing this, think about that. So it's personality, spin, and then you're going to button down that sale. So those 4 things are really going to help you. It's going to be the 4 personalities, figuring out their communication type and communicating to them, and then implementing the sales side of things. And through that spin cycle, if you will, you're going to stick to that language, hold that language. And sometimes you'll notice who these people are, even by like visual, not just what they say, but visual. Let me give you an explanation. Sometimes golds, you could just kind of tell they're more organized. You could look at their desk and see everything lined up. You're walking in their house for a listing and you see everything organized and everything in its place. You'll know that. You'll know that they're a gold. Sometimes you'll notice a red by their flamboyancy, or maybe their tattoos like I have, or something else. They got a loud hair color or wild hair. They may be a red. A blue might be a thinker. The organizer, big picture person. Think about people like Einstein and different people like that. Sometimes you'll notice these people just by visual. You won't hear them speak, but you got a general idea of who they are: red, purple, gold, or blue. So that's it. I wanted to point that out. We'll do more training on this. Again, if you haven't done the personality test, feel free. You're going to be through that training, but feel free to ask me questions. Send me an email. I'm always here for you guys. I want to make sure that your business is better. So that's it on the training today. I wanted to cover personality tests, why they're important, how we use them in sales here at Anton Agency, how we're different than anybody else out there that's even thinking about this stuff, and how we combine it with our sales strategy in closing deals. This will be on the back office, so if you need to watch this again, you can certainly go there. I want to wish everybody good luck with their investing. Success has everything to do with failure. Wealth has nothing to do with money. And life is as simple as you want to make it. That's it for the training today. We will see you next week. And I may see you on the next training when we talk about investing for our real estate agents and brokers. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great week.